So for Boeing first, I mean, people now are, looking at, should I get on these planes? Should I sit in the exit row? Used to be the prime place you want to sit. Now it's like not so much. Would you feel comfortable getting on any of these planes right now, sitting in those seats by that door plug?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in a couple hours I'll be sitting in an exit row on a Boeing aircraft. So, I have a personal stake in this, and the whole country has a stake in this, which is to make sure that every time somebody gets on an aircraft, they know that they're going to be kept safe, not just by the standards of design of the aircraft, but also the manufacturing. And that's what FAA is really putting under a microscope right now at Boeing, to make sure that the aircraft come off the line and go into service exactly the way they're supposed to do. We don't take for a second, take for granted the unbelievable safety record of the United States. The fact that flying in a tube thousands of feet above the ground is the safest way to travel in the United States or in the world. That doesn't just happen, and that won't continue unless we make sure there's continuous improvement at companies like Boeing and looking at FAA's own oversight and what could be enhanced for the future.
What's the plan, though, to change how the regulations are? In other words, this is something that should not have happened. It wasn't like a one-off. I mean, this is something that people are astounded to find that it was missing its bolts. Is something going to change when it comes to inspection regulations?
Yeah, the administrator's been clear this cannot be back to business as usual at Boeing. The manufacturer is responsible for complying with every specification that FAA puts out, covering 500,000 parts in those planes. And what's being reviewed right now is not just Boeing's practices and their supplier practices, but also the structure for how we do this kind of oversight.
What could
Congress
change?
said it. Well, Congress could change the law, but we can't just do that without thinking it through, which is exactly why the administrator has, I think, correctly said that everything should be on the table in terms of the division of labor between the regulator that's setting the standards and the manufacturer responsible for meeting those standards.
How does somebody know if they fly on a plane that we're not going to see this happen again?
Well, this should never happen. And again, we don't take for granted for 1 second that we have the aviation safety record that we have. If you just think about it, the fact that you are safer sitting on board an airplane miles above the ground than you are pretty much doing anything else. I mean, literally safer than you and I are right now having this interview.
That isn't something.
Rates? Yeah, you were more likely to die of natural causes on board an airplane than a fatal crash. We need to make sure that we maintain the activities that make that true, and not take for granted that that's always going to be the case without the utmost level of scrutiny. And that's why, in the absence of a fatal crash in the last 15 years, we're treating every close call, every incident, every time something happens that never should, like a door coming off mid-flight, that we apply the same attention and energy to that with regard to reform that used to be how America responded to an actual plane crash.
Turning to the bridge, this has been an ongoing for years. Need a new bridge, need the money for a new bridge. How likely is the money going to come through to get that bridge built quickly?
Well, I've signed off on $600 million to make sure that this project advances, and the part of what's making this possible is not just the federal grant that's coming through President Biden's infrastructure funding, but the states stepping up and bringing their funding to the table.
But these pieces are done, but there's still the money that needs to come to help build the bridge, the federal portion of it. Is that going to happen?
Well, I can't speak to any other competitive grants that are still being processed or competitions that are still open. We're celebrating this $600 million that are coming here now. And we're also recognizing that the states have really put forward on their end important parts of the funding. I know that this came heartbreakingly close to happening a decade ago, and it didn't because some of those pieces fell apart. This time, I believe, it's going to succeed. We know it's going to succeed. We're doing everything we can to make it so.
On a 1 to 10 scale, how likely will the federal piece of this happen?
Well, again, the federal piece that just happened is a $600 million award.
Right,
I don't comment on competitions that are underway right now, but obviously we expect to get a very competitive application for the other program that we expect will be in play here.
What prompted you to come out?
First of all, this is one of the biggest investments we're making in the country, and this is one of the most important transportation projects in the country. So many people count on this stretch of I-5. It's vital to the economy for so many people who commute across the bridge, and it's an asset that's more than 100 years old. We playfully had a cupcake out there for the bridge's 107th birthday. I'd say it doesn't look a year over 99, but it's got to change. We know it. And this is exactly why President Biden pushed so hard to get this infrastructure package done on in the first place, because it wasn't going to happen without federal support.